Hey everybody, this is Al from El Rey Collection. Hope everybody's having a great day. Super excited to bring you the second installment to the Seven Wonders series. These are this is the vintage version. Hopefully you've been able to check out my pre-war version and coming soon to a theater near you or a YouTube channel near you. You will get the modern version. So without further ado, I will quickly move off of this beautiful shot of Machu Picchu there to see what our seven vintage wonders are. And just a few reminders that I have that I need to kind of go through with you guys is the disclaimer. Lots of fine print here. Please take a picture and read this. But as a um, financial registered investment advisor, need to be pretty careful about this. Clearly, anything that I say here is not meant to be investment advice. Certainly, I may use words like believe, should, expect. I'll try to ground pretty much everything I say in fact, so that you can look at past sales and have those types of things. But certainly soccer cards, if you're looking at this from an investment perspective, are a risky investment. I do not recommend people have a lot of exposure to any particular risky asset in collectibles. All collectibles would fall in that category. So I'm certainly not advocating for any of that, and do not guarantee, warranty, or anything to that extent that we will, these will have positive economic returns. Again, I'm principally a collector and do this for fun, and this video should be fun too. So please let me know. Text me if you have any questions. DM me on Discord if you have any questions about this disclaimer. But this whole project is meant to be fun, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, in a direct DM on Instagram or on the Discord. But here are my general rules because I get to make the rules. These are my videos. Hopefully, they're not offensive to anyone, but here are my rules. Let me go through them if you haven't caught them on the pre-war video. Only one card or sticker per player. In general, this is going to favor the best players as well as some of the best cards. There can be some exceptions to that, but certainly not looking for rarity's sake. Maybe you have a third level star and just a super rare card and issue, usually not going to make the list. Still great to collect, but it's really hard to, out of the thousands of players that played the game, and we're literally talking decades here, after the war, early 40s through, depending which side of the war you're on, all the way to late 70s, is a tremendous amount of time, and some of the best players ever played during that time. And if there's many global issues going on, so it's just an incredibly difficult thing to pick seven. These cards have to be in my collection. I'll mention some others that would probably make the list if I had them. I don't have everything. And really nothing else. It obviously is going to favor rarer cards to more common cards. That's just the thing. I have no availability thresholds, so if there's only one or two of these cards available, they can make the list. And there's no overt value considerations, but obviously, to be one of the top seven, it's probably going to be more valuable than the bottom of the basement cards you'll see on PWCC every week. I think that just makes sense. This is a little bit different of an approach from PSA's list that was a couple years ago, which was not necessarily trying to identify the seven most valuable or the scarcest or the most desirable cards, but rather cards that best represent the hobby as a whole, that kind of push grading forward. And I totally understand that and appreciate that. And part of the reason why I broke my series into three was that all of their vintage cards were in fact in this post-war era, and I felt like the pre-war cards needed to get some love. So without further ado, let's take a look at what the PSA list was. And these are, without a doubt, absolutely iconic cards. You can read this article that I have the URL there for, written by Matt Hendler of PSA, and these were his 7 wonders of the vintage world. You can see there he has a 63 Panini Eusebio, the George Best rookie, the 77 Maradona rookie, the Cruyff Palarex, the Bergman Beckenbauer, a Bobby Charlton AMBC, and the Alifa Pele. I mean, hard to argue with those. Absolutely classic cards in the hobby. But let's take a dive in and see how my list differs. So, again, here they are. Never get tired of this picture of Machu Picchu. If you haven't been there, go there. I say as an aside, crazily beautiful place. And here we go. I'm going to do these in order of year issued, not in order of preference or value, just order of year issued. And then I'll talk about the values of the individual cards, but I'm not going to necessarily favor one over another. To make the list of the top 7 is just epic. So here we go. The first one, probably no surprise to most people, is the Puskás rookie. This is a very, very difficult to find card right now. PSA only has 10 copies found. This actually does, because it's created a few times, have an APR at PSA, which is pretty rare to see on a lot of rare vintage cards, but it's traded enough times over the last few years that they have kind of their price on there. So, why Puskás? I mean, it's kind of hard. We sometimes talk about players that score like 300 or 500 goals, and we think that that's really impressive, and it is. I mean, this guy scored 800 goals and more than a goal a game in nearly 800 games. I mean, that just is crazy. So he had 10 league championships in his time, 3 European Cups, predecessor of the Champions League. The best, most beautiful goal of the year, I guess the FIFA award named after him. There's so few pre-1954 cards, and it's really hard to get this card in above a 2. There's only 6 copies above a 2, as you can see here. Crazy cool, beautiful young card here. I mean, young picture of Puskás. I just think this one, there's no world for me that this one doesn't make it. It actually has also one of the highest sales of soccer. Not many cards have sold for more than 250,000. This particular one, this PSA 9 slab, sold for 312,000. As you can see, some of the sales that we've had over the last few years, which aren't that many, is an SGC 4 sold for more than 100,000. This PSA 9 sold for 312, and this authentic sold at the beginning of 2023 for 13. Still very limited public sales, but obviously some big ones. Anytime you cross 6 figures for a soccer card, that's a pretty big deal in soccer card collecting. It obviously makes it tough to gauge if you're going to buy one and when and where. But what we can say without a doubt is that this is clearly an elite card of an elite player, and without a doubt, there was very little doubt in my mind that this card was going to make the list. So we've got the Puskás Nanina rookie as the first one in the post-war vintage period. The second one, ironically from the same year, is a card that we don't see much at all. In fact, it's a PSA Pop 2. It's an SGC Pop 1, but that card has been double graded by me, actually. So obviously the Blonde Arrow is 5-time Euro winner and scored nearly, what is this break down to 0.75 more or less, more maybe, of goals per game in the Euros. He won he won 2 Ballon d'Ors. He had a second place finish in another one. He was the number 4 player of all time, according to France Football, behind only Pele, Maradona, and Cruyff at the turn of the century. Obviously, I think you'd have to add Messi and CR7 into that mix now. He scored more than 500 goals in 700 games and didn't play just a striker role. You know, he was an attacking midfielder as well as he did play some games in as striker. He was, you know, played for 3 different World Cups. World squads. Colombia, albeit briefly, his home Argentina and Spain, and it's just an icon on pretty much every level. The IFFHS has him on the Dream Team B and the South American Team A, and World Soccer has him in the greatest 11 of all time. Any Di Stefano card from Argentina and even Colombia is kind of hobby gold from my perspective. You know, there's a number of issues from 1953 on that are issued in Spain, which are also amazing and great. But this early Argentine stuff is just crazy. I could have picked the Bicicleta from this year, or, you know, some of the other things, Revancha, or, you know, there's just a number of Titan. There's so many great ones issued in Argentina, but all of those are, you know, pops less than 5, at least that I know of. Again, a number of these cards have ungraded you know, copies that I know are out there. So don't think this is an impossible card. You know, this is probably, you know, probably settles, I would guess, at the end of the day, somewhere between, you know, 5 and 10 copies if we fast forwarded a decade from now. So while it's incredibly tough, it's not impossible. And this particular one, I tend to, for Argentine stuff, prefer the POG look. I know a lot of people don't like that, especially if they're American. You prefer regular cards, you know, like a baseball card. But this actually is the format that was preferred for Argentine issues, and that's part of the reason why I prefer the excuse me, silhouette of Di Stefano and the Bicicleta is amazing and unique and super cool. But the POG format is really incredibly common, and that's why I decided to put the Aruc in here as opposed to some of the other ones. Anyway, so as this one is so rare, there are no public sales. We do have some other things we can look at. You know, early Di Stefanos typically do well. There's a high grade Bruguera from 53 who did 3,600. There's, you know, the Montacudine, which I know there's a lot of questions on the authenticity or date of year, you know, has always pulled kind of in the thousands over the past couple years. And, you know, was always seen by a number of hobby participants to be an attractive card, myself included. But I know that it has come under more and more scrutiny as the last few years. Regardless, you know, if one of these Arucs came to the market, I would assume that it would, you know, on a relative perspective, dwarf some of these other results. But we don't really have anything to base that off of, despite just, you know, guessing, right? They could go under the radar, but, you know, fundamentally, I think these are elite collectibles from an elite player. Imagine, you know, one of the best basketball players or football players of all time, even say top 10, top, you know, 20 type players, and them only having a handful of rookies issued in their own home country. You feel that dynamic, and I just like, wow, that it feels huge, even if I can't necessarily define that at this moment. So moving on from Di Stefano, the next one is one that maybe a bunch of people don't know. This is the 1953 Larfelice Garrincha. Obviously, Garrincha is, you know, kind of one of those elite teams as well. Also, like Di Stefano on the IFFHS Dream Team, Team B, and the South American Team A. Imagine those two playing together. He was also part of World Soccer's greatest 11 of all time, and the IFFHS Brazilian Player of the Century. He was second place South American. Brazilian Player of the Century second after Pele, South American Player fourth, and the World Player eighth. So they had him as the top 10 player all time. Obviously, won the World Cup twice, and in 1962, I'd say pretty much single-handedly brought Brazil the crown. This particular one has a pop of 5. I think there's also a 53 Americana, and that one has a pop of 2 or 3, which I think if I had a copy of that would probably supplant the Larfelice. Regardless, it's a pretty cool card. And in general, of a superstar that is sometimes not given his due by the hobby, I think. And I don't know if it's some of his life choices or addiction issues or the number of children he had or whatever. But a lot of people in Brazil will say he was even more popular than Pele, although he died in a pretty destitute way. How does this work? Well, how is his stuff doing? Well, it had its day, claim to fame in PSA 6 Vecchi, which is much more common, of a pop of more than 100, I think. Sold in the high 20,000s. Those numbers have retreated significantly. Back in the day, you could also find a PSA, you could find a PSA 2 of the Oliveira Benassi, which is the black and white sticker for more than 10,000. But the most common one you'll see out there is the Vecchi, and those have come down. And in many cases, we're trading recently at pre-boom prices, which to me just kind of blows my mind. Regardless, in high grade, even the Vecchis are super sought after, as well as other cards from 56, 57, 54, 55. I think anything pre 57 is still super elite. And the Vecchi is the most common of those. So a collector can get into one of those, but a collector's really going to have a hard time finding the Larfelice, which again looks like this. So or the Americana. Both of those are really kind of tough finds. Even the pop 5 at PSA, it was a little surprising to me. I actually thought the pop was going to be 3 or 4. Not that 1 or 2 matters that much, but when when I looked it up, I was guessing that there would be 3 or 4, and there's 5. So a little bit more than I thought. So moving on from Garrincha to his teammate, we have the 1957 Pele Americana. I could have picked this. I could have picked the O&B. The O&B I like because of it's kind of the prize sticker, so it's harder. And there are actually, I'm going to use the word many, but maybe that's an overstatement. I know there are more of these out there. There are ones that this is the dos puntos or 2 points version. There are other ones that are 5 and 10 and 50 points. I think I've even seen a photo of one that's 500. So I'm a little shocked that this pop is still sitting at 2 and that people haven't graded this, because I know some people actually have this card. And again, similar to the Aruc Di Stefano, I would guess that over time this settles in with a pop, probably certainly north of 5 and headed to 10. What does perplex me a little bit is after the sale of I'll show you this relatively large sale of more than $400,000 a couple years ago. I'm a little shocked that more people that didn't bring more out of the woodworks. We've seen that actually happen with other cars, the Lorati Mesa, the what's another the Ferrari 1920 card, which right now I'm blanking on, sold for like 30,000. We saw a bunch more come out, and I kind of expected to see more of these come out after this card traded the only time that it did, publicly. At that time, a lot of people, when they think of Pele, they'll think of the Alifa, right? That's had a great run and is probably the preferred stalwart Pele rookie card. This one, even when PSA ones, were trading, at their high point, was still trading in a similar grade at 20, 25 times what the grade adjusted is for Alifa. So this is like next level elite, and I would tend to agree with that. Number one, just rarity. Number two, the but before the World Cup it's issued, so I think that's actually that kind of at the World Cup we get so many sets in 1958, so issuing before the World Cup is actually a huge deal to me. I'm still just shocked there's only 2 authenticated copies of this. Of course, Pele needs no introduction, especially if you're watching this. But every now and then, it helps to remember, he is still the only guy to win 3 World Cups. That's not an easy thing. And while the goal total is kind of disputed, 1,000+ goals. I actually put on here global icon multiple times. I just noticed, because he absolutely is. I mean, he was the face of the sport for literally decades. So I think as an ambassador, as a good guy, he did stuff for charity. He was some of our other players of the same stature, like a Maradona, are more complicated figures. Pele just has this clean, feel to him as well, just a preeminent winner. So, that plus the 1,000 goals, plus, all the lore, and it's hard not to have. It would be so disingenuous if Pele didn't make the list. And so, of course, here he is. And, while there are other great, amazing cards, I think this is the one. This is the last one I would let go in my collection. And I have some really nice other cards as well. So I think this is one of the most desired stickers in the hobby on a grade adjusted basis for sure. And, I'm not sure what other people may even slightly prefer, except maybe the super high grade PSA 9 Alifas. So, and speaking of that, so here's the 257. Here's the 57 OMB that sold in when was that? 2021, I believe. I'm just looking to see if I see the date on this. I don't see it, and that had 180 grand. And then this one, the Americana in a SGC2, sold for close to 500,000. So, one public sale over the past couple years. The other Pele sold for 182. When the Alifa 9 sold for 250. The Alifa 9 ultimately went up to 1.3 million. Who knows where these things sit right now. But my just general belief in general is this: if these were super common, you gotta think we would have seen more. I mean, I know people that after these sales, even the 57 OMB, were just scrounging Brazil to find anything, and to see it at one, to see these pops stay so stable is crazy to me. I just thought we would have seen more. So anyway, an elite, super elite collectible, one of the best cards in my collection, one of the most important cards in my collection, I believe, and certainly makes the list of vintage cards that belong as a wonder for many of the reasons I described. So moving on, this will be another surprise, I think, to people. This is the 1965 Gold. Beckenbauer PSA has 1 copy. That 1 copy is mine. Beckenbauer hopefully doesn't need a lot of introduction, but he won the Ballon d'Or, 4-time Euro winner. He basically created the sweeper position. He was both the World Cup winner as a player and a coach. He's on the IFFHS all-time dream team. He's on the Ballon d'Or dream team. He's on the FIFA World Cup dream team. You get the idea. He is a dream team member. He is he changed the game, and he is the absolute, legend on the defensive side. I know that many people are going to talk about Maldini, which is great, and they'll talk about man, why am I Barese? But this guy is consistently in the top, 10 of every World Cup rating there is, and especially if you were to say, hey, the top 5 defenders ever, I can't imagine that he would be off of any credible person's list. So, if you want to downplay the importance of defenders, fine. You still have to put him in your top 20 of all time. And, it's this particular card, while he has some really interesting and great rookie cards that I love. I actually love all of his rookie options. This is absolutely the toughest rookie of the greatest defender ever. This particular one comes in 2 versions, the large version and the small version. They have the identical backs. There's a 1966 Grout Gold that uses the same photo on the front. I believe that has a large and a small version as well. The reverse talks about the 1965 season. So that's the difference on those. But this card is just incredibly difficult to get. And while it's certainly not a pop one, I think SGC has 1 or 2 of these graded. Although I also crossed one over from SGC to PSA, so one will be double counted. It's not. You see cards from this issue on the German eBay every now and then, but once every few years you may get lucky enough to spot a Beckenbauer, and anything that's in never stuck condition is gold, and that's why I picked the Grout Gold. See what I did there? Pretty cool, right? So super cool card. Of course, I don't have any public sales of this, so we have to look at other Beckenbauer cards. Leading the way is a PSA 9 sale that sold for $81,000 in August of 2022. The PSA 8s have been selling have sold for as high as $66,000, but that was also in 2022. But more recently, those have faced a pretty massive adjustment on the Bergmans. Those have come down, and now they're in the single digit thousands on the 8s, and the 7s now are less than 5,000. You can see this one from June of last year that sold for basically 5,000 in a PSA 7. The TTT version, a PSA 7 now, just actually a few weeks ago in January 2024, sold for a hair shy of 10,000, and that's a PSA 6. 5s have been in the 4,000, and I think that one also tops out at a PSA 9, although that's never been sold. So obviously the Grout Gold has a super low pop and no public sale, so it's hard to really know where they would sit. Obviously, similar to the 57 Americana Pele, on a grade adjusted basis, you've got the Grout Gold would absolutely blow out any of these other issues that are much more common, often found in removed from album status. But just getting a never stuck copy of the Grout Gold is pretty pretty important for in the hobby if you're able to find one of those. So how comparable the low grade one would do? Well, it's hard to know, but while I have those Grout Gold ones, would I keep a super high grade Bergman over them? Maybe not. Maybe I would. Maybe the PSA 9 I would, but maybe maybe a PSA 8 not. So it's just a hard place to find yourself. No right answer to this, but if I could never sell one, I'd probably go with the Grout Gold as opposed to the TTT and the Bergman, which I love, by the way. So this is really, really hard, and I struggled with this one, but ended up going with the Grout Gold. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Moving on from that, this one is one of the easier ones to get on the list, and I absolutely agree actually in the PSA footprint that they had, they had the Cruyff in the front in the center, and I actually was thinking, wow, that's kind of an interesting choice. I figured they put the Pele Alifa. This card is so good. I love the colors. I love the Ajax kit here. Just that green just pops and matches with the orange. He's got other options. But I just find this Pyrex issued in Portugal to be one of the best cards, one of my favorite cards. I love this card. And of course, Cruyff was, some people, I feel like the hobby's somewhat forgotten about him. He's the 3 times Ballon d'Or winner. And he had another third place on top of that. He was a massive contributor. I know we can talk about La Machina and Clockwork Orange and all this stuff, but just a massive contributor to the total football, idea and execution. He won the Champions League, Euros 3 times, and he won as a manager. People forget about that 91-92 win at Barcelona. I was living there then, so I can't forget about it. It was amazing and how revered he was. The IFFHS had him as a World Player of the Century, the number 2 spot, and the number 1 European player. I mean, think about the magnitude of that. The number 1 European player of the century, which you could easily include since the beginning of football, because no one, I think, is going to stand up and say that they would take Geo Smith or Arthur Wharton or one of these guys from WC Arthur Smith over Cruyff. So you can basically say, since when they did this and they looked at more than 100 years of football being played, they named him as the best ever from a European perspective. And number 2 only to Pele, and notably ahead of despite the recency bias, players like Maradona. So this I just, sometimes people don't let this sink in about how important he was to the game. Of course, he's on the IFFHS all-time dream team. He's on the Ballon d'Or team as a silver team, which shocked me. I think they put Maradona ahead of him as a attacking midfielder. We have he was on the FIFA World Cup Dream Team, and this is, I think, something that's also important. France Football had him as the 4th greatest manager ever. Again, best player, best European player, and 4th greatest manager. I mean, so this just blows my mind. This is an epic card of an epic player, and his contribution to the game may be the most of any player ever. And I think this particular, card or sticker has the best photo of all his rookies. And while there were a ton graded during the boom period, we went from a pop of what I think was low 30s to 80 now. It's slowed down dramatically, and you just don't see those. A lot of those were being graded and immediately sold, and that put a lot of pressure on the pricing of this item. So here's some of the pricing. Of course, when there was a PSA 8, it sold for more than $100,000 in late 2021, and even in August of 2021, even a 7 sold for 43,000. But certainly more recently into 2023, we saw a 7, which actually had dubious colors, sell for about 14,000. And then in 2023, you had 2 selling for less than 2,000, which we haven't seen. I mean, some of those even traded during, before the boom, certainly north of 1,000. So you're almost getting some pre-boom prices. A 4, which also had kind of a weird coloration, sold for 4,000. And then, a 7 in October recently sold for as low as 7,500. So, and again, not all of these, there is some issues and people talking about how, some of the ones in higher grade looks like they could have been removed. I would definitely say for this sticker, if you're going to go out and get one, because these are absolutely available. You just take a close look at the back and make sure you're happy with the copy that you're getting, not just the grade on the slab. So really take a look at that. This is one that Unfortunately, I think you got to look at the actual card in the slab and see how comfortable you are. Not all, PSA or SGC or BGS copies are created equal, even if they're in the same slab. So pretty cool. Love, love, love this card. I mean, I love all the cards on this, and I love so many others, as you can see from my honorable mention list, which is coming up now. Oh no, one more super important card is the 77 crack football Maradona. Again, as I mentioned earlier with the Di Stefano Aruc, the format of the POG here does not bother me at all. It's the clear only 1977 issue, and just like the Cruyff Pyrex, this had an explosion of pop from similarly, I think it was like the low 30s to now 83. But if you think about this, this is his earliest card in a traditional Argentine format, and there's less than 100 copies. I mean, imagine if you had something like that for, a Jordan or a LeBron. It would just be crazy, crazy sought after. And this is another global icon. He was on IFFH's all-time team, FIFA World Cup Dream Team, Ballon d'Or Dream Team, FIFA Player of the Century tied with Pele, number one on 442 magazine's greatest 100 ever, ahead of those guys. And of course, his epic 86 World Cup win. And frankly, his performance in Napoli and bringing them to win the Serie A championship is also just crazy. I mean, what he was able to do with such weak, players around him in a general sense, I think is the most epic, part of Maradona's legacy. I mean, he was also just a hair short of winning three, World Cups, which a lot of people don't think about. Obviously, 86 he won. In 1990, he made it to the final where they lost. And in 78, he was like the last man off the team and Argentina won. So, he was super close to a three-time winner. Of course, he's a one-time winner, so that matters. But I just, man, he literally just a few bounces the other direction in terms of the selection or in terms of the 1990 final. Could have moved things the other way for him. Regardless, such an epic player, such crazy talent. And this, I think, is an absolutely amazing card to add to any collection. And this one, similar to the Cruyff Pyrex, has had kind of a whiplash up and a whiplash down. The most recent thing, I think there was a PSA 2 selling for like in December for about 3,000, a 6 which had sold in 2023 for close to 45,000, cleared 10,000, which is a huge drop. And you can see over here on this card ladder price drop, there's just this massive drop. So where is this card? I think a lot depends on kind of like the Cruyff Pyrex. How do people feel about that particular version? Here, I think there have been some attempts to make fakes of this. So there's a number of things I like. I like to make sure the clarity on the shirt under magnification is, you can read most of the letters. There's a few that will always be fuzzy, but that's one thing that matters. Personally, I prefer to see the notches because these things are punched out. So I prefer to see some little notches on the side. You're also going to care about color, and printing quality. And you can see, you don't want any dot matrix stuff. So you want to look at these under a magnification. In general, I trust those out there in PSA slabs. They also have the guarantee in case the PSA made a mistake. But what was once a card that was, well north, close to 200,000, you can see in this card ladder peak. Where is a PSA 7 today? I don't know. We had seen a number of times it traded at close to 200, 150,000 when it was one of three. It's, the last trade, I think, was about 100,000, maybe 75. I can't really remember all of the things, but where is it today? And if you were to ask The card ladder and their algorithm, they would say a 7 right now would be at around 25,000. Personally, that's probably a bit low to my eyes, but 25,000 is still a massive discount off of the near 200,000 that we were at in June of 2022. That was a pretty big number. And right now, that would be, if we were at 25,000, that would be close to a 90% retention, correction downward. So I don't think we're probably at that level, but maybe we are, and in which case, I love this card over the long run. And I just think it's a collection. You can get a low grade one with great eye appeal, since there's no printing on the back. Maybe there's some paper loss, but it looks the same whether it's never stuck or it was removed. So this is one of those where I prefer eye appeal, and I would say, hey, go get one of these. This also made the PSA lists, from what I recall, as well. But to review these, yeah, I think I had a couple holdovers from the PSA list, notably the Maradona disc, as well as the Cruyff Pyrex. But a bunch of new ads to the group that are just absolutely some of the most epic cards of the era, the vintage era. In my on honorable mentions, I could have had multiple pages of this, and I probably, well, maybe I won't, since I haven't on these other two. But there's just so many great cards. Some of them I mentioned, throughout this. You could go with the Pele Alifa. You could do the 57 Pele OMB. You could have any number of early Argentine Di Stefanos. I mentioned the Bicicleta or the Revancha. You could have the Titan, Colegial, Rompe Sesos. Some of these other ones that are pretty really cool. You could add a JM Moreno. If I didn't have a JM Moreno in my pre-war list, I probably would have liked to put one in here. Personally, I love this. I love the Figuritas Cola. They're just really big discs. I think those are really cool. Could have put an Olympia in there. Of course, could have had Zico. Zico's rookie in there. It's really tough. Could have picked any number of Bobby Charltons. Here's the Ferraro Rocher, but you could have had the Malton version, Seri. Oh, I'm probably saying that wrong. You could have had the Collinville gum, the small one. Again, I talked about, maybe you could have picked a really high grade Beckenbauer, like this PSA 9 here, or a really nice TTT. You could have